guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we will take a look at some new Just Know HOA content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
First one is titled, Got to Say It Out Loud. I do not live in an HOA, but we still have a neighborhood region as designated by the city, and once a month anyone who wants to get together with our local PD's neighborhood relations officer, and usually our district city council rep. Well, as you can imagine, we have a few people who are the type who would dream of being on an HOA board. Well, we had that monthly meeting a few days ago, and one of my most lovely neighbors shows up with this guest in a bit of a suit. After the routine stuff, she points out that she failed to have time to speak. She gets up, introduces, I honestly don't remember his name, and starts talking about how she would like for us to listen to him, explain the benefits of bonding our neighborhood together in an HOA. Well, I'm sitting up front as usual and could not help but blurt out, "Duck HOAS," while trying not to laugh. She looks surprised, stares at me and says, "Excuse me." So I pop to my feet. Okay. We are the north side, not the southwest. Most of us are fighting to make it month to month, and we will have to pay a few hundred extra to some suit for what might sound good, but guess what? Trash can on curb past 7 a.m. on pickup day or out before 11 p.m. the night before, get a fine. Lawn over 2 inches high for more than 24 hours, get a fine. House does not match stipulated paint colors, get a fine and fix it within 14 days. Feed the stray cats, looking at a lady who does so, get a fine. Look to another neighbor. Put out winter protective boxes so the strays don't freeze to death, get a fine per box. Judy kept trying to interrupt, but I ignored her. Working on your car in your own drive, yep, another fine per day. And guess what? You fall behind, they put a lien on your house, put you out and either rebuild it or tear it down and build something new to upscale, and eventually push as many out as possible to replace us and elevate the neighborhood, all while making themselves rich off stealing our properties. I'll never sign anything. Judy? The room looked back to her like they were looking to commit a lynching. Needless to say, it went nowhere. He tried to talk up his points, but thanks to those of you here who have shared your suffering, I had counters to everything he threw out. Thank you all for preparing me for a day I did not see coming. Next one is titled, What the Duck HOA Neighbors. So, I live in a township, but next to a HOA. I have a 50 and 100 yard shooting range in the back, and in the last year, the cops have been out 3 times from neighbors calling them when I'm shooting. And each time, they say, "Just checking in. You are all good. Have a nice day." And we laugh. Well, yesterday, I zero a new sight for my 450 BM with 9 rounds. Then a buddy stops over to do some pistol shooting, and a cop shows up and says, "We had a report of cannon fire. Lol." So we laugh about it. He leaves, and we keep shooting. After I come in, my wife hands me her cell and says, "Listen to this." 10 minutes after the cop left is when the voicemail came. It's a creepy old lady saying my name, and she is watching me. So I call the cop back, and he says after we left, he stopped at her house to tell her I'm all legal and can do what I want on my property. Her response was, "Well, maybe I'll have to call the news then." So now I'm convinced the voicemail was from her. So I email the file to him to verify, and tell him he might want to have a talk with her on what a real bad idea it is to that. And he says if it's her, he will be stopping back at her house for a discussion. At this point, I'm upset. So come 4 p.m. today. The back of her house sits at the end of a valley off the side of my property, so it will funnel the sound right to her house. I'll take my AR with a nice loud JP break on it and do a mag dump back in the valley. Next one is titled, HOA Board Member Attempts to Fight God. I live with my parents in a large, about 500 house, gated community. For the past 20 years, the HOA has done a good job keeping the roads, sidewalks, pools, and small clubhouse maintained. A large number of houses overlook an old and well-loved city park, where a number of ducks, geese, and the occasional lost pelican or stork live. The park is completely unconnected to the HOA or gated community. Early this year, park management announced they were going to be doing extensive deep maintenance, like cleaning and restocking the lakes, pruning trees, cleaning the gravel paths, etc. Included in this was a complete tear-down and reconstruction of the restrooms, which my dad swears were from the 70s. Enter Lucy, a 30-something stay-at-home mom who got elected to the HOA board last year. She somehow thought that the park was administered by the HOA and thus all plans needed to be seen by her for approval. She was very vocal about her feelings on this on Nextdoor, and got together a small posse of supporters, ignored all the naysayers, and tried to shut down the operation via calls to the original community developer. When that failed, Lucy's next target was the city. But the city the development is in is not the same city that runs the park, thanks to legacy city limits. Obviously, construction and renovation has been going on without a hitch. So Lucy takes matters into her own hands and uses the tiny fragment of authority she has as a board member to file a lawsuit on behalf of the HOA against the government agency responsible for the park. One problem: while the park is on the other city's land, it's actively run and managed by the state, because it was designated before the city was incorporated. So Lucy filed a lawsuit based on a violation of HOA policy against the state of California. There was an emergency board meeting called to deal with it, but due to scheduling errors, not enough members showed up to achieve quorum, although plenty of residents did. Lucy refused to concede, and she couldn't be removed from her position, so everyone went home angry. Yesterday, at the regular board meeting 1 week later, the residents learned the lawsuit had been tossed out of court, much to everyone's relief. But the community is now on the hook for an unknown amount of legal fees. Lucy was at the second meeting, nor has she been active on Nextdoor, so we're all hoping it's over. Duck HOA for allowing board members to file suit on behalf of the HOA. Next one is titled, "His Neighbors Saved Him from the HOA's Callous Indifference." One time I went away for a long weekend and left after work on Thursday. Late Friday afternoon, my water heater burst in the attic of a 3-story home and flooded my entire townhouse. When my neighbor got home from work, he saw gallons of water running from underneath my garage door. When he realized I wasn't home, he tried to find my phone number to no avail, so he called the homeowners association to notify me. The lady that answered said that since it was after business hours, it was 5:01 at this point, the matter would have to wait until Monday. My wonderful neighbor ended up calling the non-emergency police line, and they came and shut my water off from the street. When I got home Sunday morning, my entire house was damaged, and I could see my attic from my basement. After a massive panic attack and a frantic call to my insurance company, we started the process of repairs. The cherry on top was that I needed to have a dumpster placed in my driveway along with a moving pod as I removed what was left of my furniture and began drying out the house. Then I got a visit from the HOA. They didn't like how unsightly my home had become and wanted the items removed from my driveway, so I essentially told them that they could take their complaints and go shove them up their butts. I got a little revenge too because I stopped paying their stupid fees since they couldn't find me before 6 months of residency, and I was moving in less than 5 months. I will never again own a property involved with a homeowners association. They're the worst. Next one is titled, "An Awful First Month for the Newlyweds." Right after my wife and I got married, we found an apartment to move into, and although it was far from perfect, it was spacious and 2 minutes away from work. This happened during the beginning of August in South Florida. On the day we moved in, we found a letter posted from the homeowners association stating that someone had to be present in our unit while the workers were there to work on the central cooling unit. Okay, no big deal, I have the ability to work from home sometimes, so I did. Well, at the end of those first 2 days, workers were there from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. We were told that the project was bigger than expected and found out exactly what was happening. They were replacing the piping of all 22 units in our complex, and we were lucky enough to have one of 2 points of access to the roof in our bedroom closet. That roof access was utilized for 24 days out of the month of August for up to 14 hours a day. So my new wife and I spent a lot of our first month of marriage alongside AC repairmen. Also, we still don't have functioning central air. Next one is titled, "Setting the Perfect Trap." My friend and her husband moved into this gated community. She loves having a bird bath in her backyard, and she gardens a lot, so the decoration makes sense. Turns out her HOA figured out that she had said bird bath in her backyard. Apparently, bird bath means lawn ornament, which was forbidden. She told him she would remove it. A week later, she gets another message saying that it hasn't been removed. It wasn't. Obviously, her and her husband put it together that the HOA is snooping in her backyard. For a week, she spends her time outside sunbathing in the wide open setting her trap. Sure enough, an HOA narc opens the gate to their backyard and sees her in the birthday suit. Instant call to the police for privacy violations. The HOA gave up and let her have a bird bath. She is now on the board of the HOA and they leave her alone. Next one is titled, Get Off My Lawn. Sitting in my living room while I'm working from home. Lunatic, I can only assume. Neighbor is walking inches away from my 2 feet stucco wall in my backyard. There is not a street that she is walking on alongside my yard. There is a rolling hill with wild grass that separates my backyard and the street. Thought she was a peeping Tom as she stood about 20 feet in front of my floor-to-ceiling windows, but no, she was just looking at the pomegranate tree. It was an imaginary one as I don't have a pomegranate tree. What in ducking creep? She was likely making the rounds and searching for non-issues to report as a violation. Peering into my goddamn living room feels like a much worse violation, in my opinion. I would simply laugh at these people before I realize the non-stop tomfoolery they are up to while I used to be away at the office all day. A user in the comments said, "This reminds me of when, where I used to live, one of my neighbors was having landscaping done in the backyard. The HOA president and one of his minions demanded access to the backyard so that they could see what she was having done, as she hadn't submitted it to the architectural committee for approval. Since the backyard landscaping wasn't under the HOA's control and didn't need to be run past the architectural committee, she basically told him to duck off. Later, when she was lying on the couch, she saw them through her back window standing on a ladder so that they could see over her back wall into her backyard. She proceeded to quite vigorously tell them to duck off a second time and to stop looking in her backyard before she called the police. They didn't like it, but there wasn't much they could do about it other than to leave.